This is Mornings on ABC Radio Sydney.
Why isn't your phone waterproof? I mean, it's not 2004, it's 2022. Have you ever dropped it in the ocean, maybe in the toilets, the bath? Manufacturers have increased the water-repelling nature of smartphones. They haven't quite nailed waterproofing yet. So, dropping it in something like that can lead to a damaged phone. Repair bills. It does seem odd that, I don't know. Well, let's find out. Dr. Ritesh Chugh, Associate Professor of Information and Communications Technology at CQ University Australia, joins us. What's the difference between waterproofing and water resistance?
So a water-resistant phone or a product can usually resist some water penetration, whereas a waterproof phone is totally impervious. That means it should not allow any water to pass through.
Okay, so where are we with waterproofing and phones at the moment?
James, there are way too many fragile components in smartphones that need shielding from water. And that's what makes the entire process cumbersome. In fact, last week, Samsung Australia was fined $14 million by the Australian Federal Court because they were making misrepresentations about the water resistance of their Galaxy phones. Now, subsequently, and this is perhaps a trend that's emerging now, is phone companies are wary of even using the word waterproofing. Instead, they've started using the word water resistant because it's really difficult to make totally waterproof phones that do not allow any water to pass through. And look, Australia is not the first country. Last year, actually in 2020, Apple was also fined 10 million euros in Italy. So the claims about water proofing are not entirely true.
Okay. And so why is it so hard to waterproof a phone?
Like I said, there are way too many components, and these components are fragile. So if you think of your typical phone, there are so many entry points through which water and dust is also an important factor that we should consider, that can enter our phones. And these entry points usually are the buttons and switches that we see on the phone, the speaker, microphone, our camera access, also the charging port and the SIM card tray. So these are all entry points through which both water and dust can enter our phone, and trying to make these points waterproof are difficult because, James, it's important to cover each of these entry points if we need truly waterproof phones.
I've heard anecdotally, some people look at their phones in the bath. I think that's a very bad idea, but they do. That would probably be a growth area of damage to phone. If you drop your phone in the sink or in the bath, presumably you jump in and get it out as quick as possible, but how likely is it to be damaged?
If you're really quick, chances are that it won't be damaged, particularly given that our new phones these days have waterproofing or water resistance, as I said, standards. And those standards they're called Ingress Protection Rating. So when we buy a new phone, I'd advise your listeners to check for its IP rating. Like I said, new phones usually these days have an IP rating of IP68. So phones that have an IP rating of 68 would usually indicate that the phone can withstand a maximum depth of 1.5 meters in fresh water for up to 30 minutes. And this is for Samsung. Apple phones, what Apple says is that their phones can withstand a maximum depth of 6 meters for up to 30 minutes. So to answer your question, if it's fallen, you've taken it out really quickly, I don't think they should suffer any damage.
Well, Jess texts in, my teenage son's iPhone survived an hour in the ocean. its battery life wasn't as good afterwards, but he used it for another few years. I couldn't believe it when he pulled it out of the pocket of his board shorts.
Yep.
So that,
I wouldn't be surprised either.
yeah, but battery life might get affected.
It's not just the battery life. Your charging port could also short circuit.
Yeah, right.
And James, we all need to understand that the testing of phones is done under lab controlled conditions. So when Apple and Samsung test their phones, they're under lab controlled conditions. Whereas when we are using our phone, we use them in the real world.
Yeah.
So we might be using it when we are swimming or snorkeling, and the factors are different to what they are in lab controlled conditions.
Indeed.
Because the factors that vary are swimming movement, for example, the speed, the water pressure, and the alkalinity as well. So all of these contribute to the factors that impact the water resistance of our phones.
Thank you very much for that, Ritesh. Really appreciate it.
Thank you. Thanks for having me.
All the best, Ritesh Chugg, Associate Professor of Information and Communications Technology at CQ University.